continuing our discussion on narratives inside a Sandbox campaign, Lord St. John commented, "This feels too much like a narrative railroad for my style of Sandbox. Quote, you will interact with this plot thread or else. For me, the narrative plot emerges as a result of play and player agency. It is not fed into the Sandbox as a fully formed arc by the referee, demanding to be interacted with. If one creates a plot hook and the players decide not to interact with it, the chances are that it isn't something that interests them particularly, and I wouldn't push that any further. Provided I have created some interesting locales, some elements that the players choose to interact with, and then pursue the resultant leads, then there shouldn't be a particular need to go heavy-handed on feeding the big plot hooks. If players are lost for what to do next in a Sandbox, the chances are that I haven't provided them with enough interesting locales and choices to take a proactive decision to follow, or the players themselves are lacking in confidence and adventurous spirit, which begs the question why their characters became adventurers in the first place. So, in conclusion, referee-driven narrative plot hooks should never be necessary in a Sandbox setting. The players with their agency should be the drivers of the kinds of adventures that they want to experience. The plot or story is then the natural product of those adventures and experiences." Okay, so first of all, this is great. Thanks for the comment, Lord St. John. But I feel like we're not talking about different things. But I feel very strongly that in a dynamic world, in a world that really, in a way, honors player agency, once things are put out in the world, they should go to their logical conclusions. And that is to say, regardless of how you get to a thing happening, whether it's rolling the dice, whether it is the result of earlier player actions, that events are set in motion, I feel very strongly that the world should, to be dynamic, to be really dynamic, that those things should push on to conclude one way or another. Now, yes, absolutely, there is the part that says, hey man, maybe the players, and their characters too, potentially, are not interested in dealing with cultists. Maybe they're rolling their eyes going, oh, cultists, we've done that so many times, I'm not interested anymore. And that's fair enough. But however, we have put it out there in the world, and I don't think because once we put it out there, the players roll their eyes at it, that the world suddenly forgets that those cultists are there. I think what we can look at as referees is there are a million ways in which a cult might realize whatever their goal is, and we can think about if the really more tropey ways of doing that, having a big sacrificial ceremony on a hill under moonlight doesn't do the trick. Maybe it could be something more insidious, something that feeds more into player interest. That's us as the GMs using our creativity to take what our players are like and really thinking about that. Well, they really don't like these elements, so I'm not going to do that. But there are other ways to skin that cat. However, I think if we have set up the fact that cultists are doing weird things around the town, then I think it's only natural that that question persists is, well, what are they doing? If the players don't stop them, who else is going to stop them? Maybe somebody else does. It could be that in the reality is that, yeah, the cultists are stopped, somebody else does it, and now that person, whoever that is, individual, other faction, whatever, then feeds into something else. This isn't about being heavy-handed with the plot. It's about honoring the world decisions that are made. There's a storm on the horizon. Does that storm disappear because the party turns away? No, that storm should keep coming, and there are consequences for that. I'm going to give an example from Daniel's game, and I bring up Daniel's game a lot because, well, he runs a good game, and I'm in it, so I get to talk about that. In our game, there are multiple plot hooks going on. In fact, as I've only been playing for a few months now, and we've missed some sessions, so it hasn't been all that long, there are lots of balls that are sort of being juggled in the air that I'm still only have the vaguest awareness of. But it's clear there are multiple things happening in this world. We know that there are a group of individuals on one island who are sacrificing folk to try to resurrect these old gods. We know there's other folks doing things in other places. This does not impinge on our agency. In fact, I think it enhances it because there's real tension in the decisions that we make. There are things we want to do. There are other things we want to do. We also know we want to stop that thing. So now what choice do we make? And we know that those choices have consequences. If we allow them to keep sacrificing people and doing that ceremony that's going over months and months, that we know at the end of the day, if we don't stop it, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe some dead god will rise from the grave. Probably not a good thing. We know that. We also know we have other goals. But for the world, it really feels like our choices matter, which is a lot different than, oh, hey, this thing's going on with there. We don't want to do it. Okay, well, it wasn't really anything anyway. Those skulking figures, it wasn't really the Cult of Orcus. It was just some farmers doing some night fishing. I don't know. I'm sure that's probably not what you meant there, but I think my point stands in that I think it's fine for we to lean on player agency and player decision making and player actions. In fact, I think we should do that. But what I'm saying isn't to mean that we're overriding those. But what I am saying is that things happen in the world regardless of who starts them. It could very well be that the players begin this whole thing, or that whatever's happening oftentimes is when I've talked about my own game, the players do something and then that thing responds to them and starts a chain of events rolling forward. But once you've decided, hey, this chain of events is rolling forward, then us as the referee, that's part of the world. And I've said it, it's out there in the game now. I've always talked about how I think there's kind of potential things that could happen and there's things that are happening. Once we say, hey, this thing is happening out there, then I think it should happen. Or if it doesn't happen, something in-world causes it to happen. It doesn't just fade away because the party decides not to look that way. Now, of course, it can become very heavy-handed, and there isn't just one narrative going on, and the party is free to do what they want, and I think them considering their options and choices and thinking about which choices mean what is not a diminishing of their options. To me, it's making their options even more important because it has real impact as opposed to we have lots of options and none of them really matter more than the other one. And that's really what I want in my world anyway. In my sandbox, I want the world to be moving and happening. I want the party to feel like they're part of that world. And part of being part of it isn't just pushing the events, it's also feeling the tensions of events pushing back at them. But your points are well taken. I think there's certainly things you need to be aware of. And listen, we can all play our sandboxes differently. We don't all have to play in the same way. So if you want to run in the way that Lord St. John recommends, that's great. If you fall more in line with my philosophy, I guess that's also great. Thanks for the comment, Lord St. John. Keep them coming. Game on. Talk to you later. Bye now.